You know, the story we're breaking down today isn't about some seasoned adventurer pushing the limits. It's about something way more common, and maybe even a little more terrifying. A totally routine trip that went wrong, and went wrong fast. We're going to get into the series of small, calculated decisions that can mean the difference between life and death. This is a case study in decision math.
Right, so this wasn't a challenge he signed up for. He had no plan to conquer the desert. And that detail, that's what makes this so important, because it puts us right in his shoes. Honestly, this could have been any one of us on just a simple day trip.
He was a photographer. He was just heading out into the southern Arizona desert in the middle of July to catch the sunset. A 30-minute drive out, 30 minutes back. That's it. So no overnight bag, no extra water, no emergency beacon. I mean, why would you pack for an apocalypse when you're just popping out for an hour?
And that's exactly where the mystery starts. By midnight, his phone was going straight to voicemail. The next morning, search teams find his vehicle. But the really unsettling part is what they don't find. Not a single footprint leading back to the road. It's like he just vanished.
So that's the question the search teams were asking, and it's the one we're going to answer. We're going to do it by breaking down the exact sequence of choices he made, starting from the moment his simple drive turned into a full-blown fight for survival.
Okay, so the first crisis hits. After a short walk to take a few photos, he gets back to his SUV and finds out the battery's dead. He'd left an interior light on. Simple mistake. But just like that, his ride home is gone. No engine, no AC, no signal. And the desert heat is really starting to build.
And this is how quickly that vehicle transforms. With an outside temperature of 108 degrees, search teams calculated that within just an hour, the inside of that SUV would become a 130-degree convection oven. That metal box, designed for comfort, was now a deadly trap.
So he tried to wait inside at first, but after about 15 minutes, he felt dizzy, and that's the first major red flag for heat exhaustion. His decision to get out of that vehicle right at that moment was the first critical step that saved his life. You know, heat kills quietly, and staying inside would have been a fatal mistake, period.
And he didn't just get out, he got smart. He immediately stepped into the shadow of his own SUV. He didn't wander away from it. In the desert, your vehicle is the single largest shade structure you're going to find, and it's your main point of reference. The second you put distance between yourself and your only real shelter, your odds of survival just plummet. He recognized the car wasn't just a dead vehicle anymore. It was a resource.
So his next huge problem was managing his resources, which were basically non-existent. All he had was a small camera backpack and one half-full bottle of water. In this kind of heat, the human body can lose up to a liter of sweat per hour. The clock was ticking, loud. Now this is pure survival math. He immediately started rationing, but not by thirst. He rationed by time. One small sip every 20 minutes. So why do that? Because thirst is a notoriously bad indicator of your body's actual hydration level. This calculated intake allowed his body to absorb the water way more efficiently, preventing waste and buying himself precious, precious hours.
But after about an hour, he made a near-fatal error. He saw a ridge in the distance and thought, hey, maybe I can see the road from there. The problem is, desert terrain is a master of illusion. It totally messes with your depth perception, making things look way closer than they actually are. So he started walking, uphill, in the midday heat.
And here's the cost of that mistake. Within just 30 minutes, his symptoms escalated dramatically. The dizziness came roaring back, but this time it was followed by a headache, severe muscle cramping, and then tunnel vision. He was rapidly sliding from heat exhaustion into the far more dangerous territory of heat stroke. He was at a crossroads. Every single instinct in your body screams to keep going, to solve the problem, to find that road. But he did the exact opposite. He stopped. And that single decision, that decision to stop, is really the core of this entire story.
And here's the crucial contrast. Our instinct is to fight, to act, to push through. But in the desert, that instinct is a killer. It burns through your water and your energy at a totally unsustainable rate. Survival logic, on the other hand, demands the opposite: restraint, conservation, and waiting for conditions to get better.
He crawled into the shadow of a small rock overhang, and he just waited. This was not giving up. This was a conscious, calculated decision. It was a thermal strategy designed to reduce his metabolic heat production, that's the heat generated by his own body, and to preserve what little water he had left. He stopped fighting the desert and started working with it.
Okay, so now the dynamic shifts.
He's in survival mode, conserving energy. But how does he get found? Search teams were out, yeah, but the desert wind had already wiped away his tracks. They were looking in the wrong area. It was up to him to create an opportunity for them.
He could have shouted, right? But sound just gets lost in that wide-open terrain. So instead, he did something incredibly clever. He took a bright red cloth from his camera bag, tied it to his tripod, and stood it up in the open sand. Red against beige. It's an anchor of unnatural color that the human eye is just drawn to. And this is critical. He stayed right next to it. A signal is totally useless if the survivor isn't there.
Meanwhile, the search team was reanalyzing the scene back at the SUV. They noticed there were no signs of some desperate long-distance escape attempt. That suggested he hadn't gone very far, so they narrowed the search radius and made another key decision: wait until dusk to deploy a thermal drone. When the ground cools, a warm human body stands out like a beacon. And at 9:40 p.m., the drone operator saw it, a small heat signature right next to a vertical object, his tripod.
He was found alive, but just barely. And what's so essential to understand here is that no single heroic act saved him. There was no miracle. It was the sequence of his decisions. Each correct choice bought him just a little bit more time, which led to the next choice.
So let's just run through that winning formula one more time. He stayed near his shelter, he rationed his water correctly, he stopped moving during peak heat, he created that high-contrast signal, and he actively worked to minimize his body's heat production when he was at his absolute limit. It wasn't about strength or gear. It was all about the logic of the sequence.
But, to really understand why his choices worked so well, we have to look at the alternative. What would the common, instinctive, and probably fatal path have looked like? Any one of these mistakes could have been the end. Staying in the car would have literally cooked him. Drinking all his water at once would have left him with nothing. And continuously walking in the midday heat, that is the #1 reason people don't make it out there. He survived not just because of what he did, but because of what he chose not to do.
And really, that's the ultimate takeaway. We always imagine survival as this act of courage and forward momentum. But this case study shows us that sometimes survival is about patience, restraint, and the quiet intelligence to conserve. He left for a 30-minute trip and ended up lasting 36 hours, not because he was strong, but because he was smart enough to stop when every single instant told him to keep moving.